Happy Monday morning, everyone. Welcome to Shelley's Show and Tell. I'm Shelley Hancock. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this morning. I'm so very grateful. I have an incredible guest speaker with us today, Jane Mann. But before I introduce her, just something that yesterday I was on the exercise bicycle, reading my People magazine. That keeps me on the bicycle longer when I read magazines. And I was reading an article about Helen Mirren. And she said something very interesting. They were asking her about beauty. And she said there's all different beauty. Beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, right? Everybody has a different sense of what beauty means to them. And she said, I kind of wish the beauty industry would call themselves the swagger industry. And I just had to stop and think about that. And I thought, I kind of like that word, first of all. And then second, it was like, I know when I work on myself, I feel like I have a little swagger when I get finished. And I feel like when my clients, when I get finished with their treatments and they get up, there's a little swagger there. So I thought, we need to start using that word swagger a little often. I just really like that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Jane Mann is the microcurrent guru. Just love Jane. We were just saying to each other that it was 2010 when we originally met each other. She came and did a class at my training center in Foster City. And then you came down to Laguna Niguel, Capistrano Beach area and gave another three-day workshop, I believe, right, Jane, on microcurrent. And she's just my go-to if I need to know about microcurrent. And I thought it would be lovely to have her here today to talk to us about the latest and greatest. And I know that she's got a new workshop coming up that y'all may want to attend. So Jane, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much. A little bit like Rosalind, microcurrent or not microcurrent, but aesthetics is a second career for me. I was graduated with a master's at the University of Iowa in 1988, and I came to LA where I worked for Surfer Magazine and market research. And that kind of brought me to later my own company, to where I was hired by another company called Churn Publishing to do a beauty magazine. And it was at that point, I was a single mom, 3 kids, and I knew I needed to change my life to accommodate my kids' schedule. So I went to aesthetics school, and along that time, I was still kind of creating what was called an editorial calendar. And a company out of London contacted me and they said, would you do an article on microcurrent? And so I said, well, what's that? Because Omnilux was big and LED was big, but microcurrent still really hadn't taken off in the aesthetic industry. So she came to my office and she gave me a facial, and hands down, I thought, I'm sold. This is an amazing way to preserve, my skin. I was 38 at the time. So from that day forward, 38 to 56 now, I have done microcurrent religiously, no surgery. And just like every other person, I look in the mirror sometimes, my face and thinking, shit, maybe I just throw in the towel. But here I am, the microcurrent, talker. And so I kind of got to own my own game. Microcurrent intrigued me because of the science. It's about science, and science is numbers. So microcurrent is a millionth of an amp. And the studies were done on this millionth of an amp and its effect on the cell membrane. So back in 2008 and 9, when I'm talking about the science of microcurrent, everybody just glazed over, because now I was requiring a little bit more into biology than what estheticians wanted to do. But we've evolved now as a industry, and we have to be on our A game. We have to understand, because delivery systems of ingredients, technologies in the home tools, all are addressing the cells. And now we're starting to understand that in order to look young, we have to address the age of the cell. It's no longer just saying, I'm going to do this treatment on you and you're going to look like this after photo, because if your cell membrane is compromised, no matter what you do, no matter what you blast, no matter what you try to trick the skin into believing the cell is only capable of doing what the cell is capable of producing. And so microcurrent is this sneaky tool that an esthetician has that actually can go back and work on that cell, the ATP or the androgen triphosphate of the cell, which is basically like the powerhouse or the energy of the cell to create the protein synthesis, to create the collagen and elastin. So that was kind of my spiel for, 10 years. And one day I'm sitting looking at a client and I'm like, wow, this microcurrent is going to work for her, but there is a lot more to what was needed. So, ironically, in college, I taught yoga and later had gotten my Pilates certification, and I started to go back thinking about fascia. Now, when I came out with the fascia release for faces, people looked at me and thought, she's spelling facial wrong. And I'd go, no, it's fascia. Fascia is a connective tissue. And since this time, we have learned the importance and the effect of fascial restriction and structure and function of the body as well as the skin and wrinkles. So as my teaching and knowledge evolved, I started to really incorporate full body and fascia work with microcurrent. And the machines that I had created for my techniques run through my fingers instead of through probes. And so they come like the girls when they do Instagrams or something, they call them like electric hands, because we ground the client and we ground ourselves. And when we touch the skin, we actually pull the current, we connect the current on the face. And so that's kind of the future, I feel, working as a 360-degree approach to your client's aging plan versus just, doing microcurrent and selling them.
I told you she was amazing, you guys. She said a few words there that I could not even repeat. One of
Well,
the
just
things
ask me.
one of the things I remember about, I think, both of the classes that you did at my training centers was that you told everybody to bring their microcurrent machines in that they already had. You weren't trying to sell them a microcurrent machine. You're trying to teach them this technology. And I remember everybody walking in with their microcurrent machines, and everybody's all set up with a different machine. And it's like, it's universal. You can teach them what to do with whatever machine they already have.
Exactly. And then that goes back to microcurrent is a millionth of an amp. So if you have brand A, brand B, brand C, brand D, it doesn't matter. It's how you're used to working with your machine. And I try to teach you to become the most confident in utilizing that and understanding it, because everybody has a different name for a sine waveform, which is kind of like a flowy type, or a sawtooth. Everyone's going to post their kind of twist on what that is. But again, it's a waveform that carries the electron to the cell. However we choose to get that electron to the cell is going to be proprietary to the manufacturer that you chose.
So everyone who knows me knows that I am not it's not that I'm not a big fan of microcurrent. I'm not a big fan of doing traditional microcurrent. It bores me to death. But talking to you, whenever I hear you, I get excited about it again, but then I can't seem to go back to it. It's just not something I enjoy. So there's another way that you just talked about using your hands. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Well, we age. And as we age, our connective tissue, we've got everything. We have hormonal changes, we have dietary issues from being younger. I mean, we have a whole plethora of reasons why we're aging. So somebody comes in and typically they're in their mid 40s to 60s and they're kind of like, fix me. I just woke up and today I'm old. And, so now you've got to look at the structure and function of the body. They're standing there and their shoulders are up high, they're lunged forward, and we're creating almost this, like if my hand were your posture, we're starting to see this recline, and then the abdominals soften, and it's kind of like we have a C curve, And now we've got hip and knee issues. And what we're not understanding is fascia goes from the top of the head all the way to the body. It encapsulates everything. So some of you remember pantyhose, and this is what we would put on. And I swear to God, if that was tweaked a little in the groin the whole day, you're just moving around weird. You're just trying to get out of this tweaking. But fascia is the same way. You could twist your ankle, you're going to feel it in your knee, your hip, and ultimately even your jaw. And everything is about balance. And when you come unbalanced, the head is the heaviest appendage. It's 14 pounds. And the more you start to protrude forward, the more we're engaging the trapezius muscles. The more you engage the trapezius muscles, we start to restrict the lymphatic flow. And so it became now the probes were kind of cute and sweet, but they weren't hands on. And there's so much of an energy when you're lengthening and you're filtering the current through you. And I can show you how to work your machine through your hands. It isn't rocket science, honestly. I'm not a scientist. I mean, I was a writer. So this is just kind of like taking ideas and getting somebody to think outside the box with me, because the traditional way was not going to work. And I back it up in class. I show you. I mean, I've got hundreds of before and after photos showing you that, you know, this isn't about a toning issue. This is a lengthening and restoration connective tissue issue. And the body wants to seek its now normal balance. And if we can release and restore, the natural lift occurs and maintains, you know, because now the body's supporting it, not just, you know, a couple electrical pulses to plump up the muscle. Did I answer your question?
Oops, there goes my light. Yes, you actually did. But what came to mind now was two things. Full body, right? It's not just working on the face, because the way you said, oh, her body begins to, you know, so I know as estheticians, we're not necessarily supposed to work on the full body, but if there's something we can send our clients home with to do, and
So,
then,
and that's the thing. I give you the tools, but I also expect you to do the work. But you know, aesthetics is changing, and we need to become more of a cog in the wheel. You can't get left by just saying, "Oh, this is going to work." So, if somebody comes in and they have a, you know, substantial estrogen loss, you know, you refer them to your endocrinologist. And so, I have a body worker, I have a dentist, I have, you know, I like I said, it's kind of like I'm this person, and then I refer out to all of these people and say, listen, here's a Rolfer, or here's this new one I'm so excited about. I didn't put it by my desk, but block therapy. And it's done online, and it's a full fascia body release. And so you really can incorporate just a greater sense of wellness and that swagger back, you know, Sally. When
yeah,
people feel good, they reflect beauty.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's really saying to them, okay, listen, you know, I can help you out here, and I'm going to show you why, but now I'm giving you the tools to carry this out further.
I love it. The second thing that came to mind for me was us estheticians crunch, you know, over a treatment table like that
Right.
over time. So what do we do to take care of ourselves?
Well, if you come to the class, it's like a 2 day. Well, I have to take it to 1 day now, and I have made some changes because before I used to teach fascia release, and that's a lot for an esthetician if they don't know anything about body. Um, so I've modified it into a 1 day, but it's an intensive workshop. 90% of the time you're working on each other. And then, so that's one thing. But for yourself, you know, it's practicing what you preach. I mean, I do the block therapy, I do Pilates, I do, you know, yoga. Um, and then, you know, there's just certain tricks. I'll show you how to use props to kind of elevate the back and kind of extend their body. So while you're working here, you're working really down. I have all the time people go, I feel this on my toes. I feel this on my knees. Like, oh my God, this stretch is amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell us about the next class that you have coming up, when it is, where it is.
So it's Las Vegas, right before the show, Friday before the show. It's at Red Rock Country Club. Lunch is provided. I cap it at 15 people because I really work hands-on with each and every one of you because it's really a feel thing. And so, fascia, I broke it down into three levels. You have one, two, and three. And one is just kind of like a very like baby touch. And level two is kind of moving the tissue along the muscle. Level three is really digging in and working that deep fascia along the muscle. And so it's learning how to identify restricted fascia. It's learning how to kind of touch and manipulate and release. And it's a practice. And it's something though that, as you're working on the client, cleansing, I'm doing the research. I'm cleansing their face, but at the same time, I'm starting to kind of figure it out. The moment they walk in and talk to me, I'm looking at the symmetry of the face. I'm looking at the lay of their shoulders. So we really go over all of these hints that you get that you'll just kind of put in your collection of notes and then go back and check.
I love this because I love the whole idea of being creative. When you look at a person's face, it's not do this step 3 times and this step 4 times. It's like you're sculpting, like, you're being creative when you're working on somebody. And that sounds like exactly what you're doing with this.
It You are so right. And I have to tell you the number of people, and that's what I have to say is be gentle on yourself because I'm asking you, I can't give you an ABC 1, 2, 3. The class does, but the most successful people of this, and then one of the estheticians that took the class does this on Lady Gaga. I mean, it's more and more, it's used, but it becomes your facial. It becomes your kind of who you are and what you have. And I'm always pleasantly surprised, for those that are willing to say, okay, there's a gal in Austin. She really got into doing it on the breast area after mastectomies, releasing the fascia and taking that décolleté all the way up. You don't realize that your platysma starts about here and goes all the way up to here. And every time you lift something, this is getting contracted. And as this pulls your shoulders up, it's kind of like the body like space. It doesn't know what to do. So now the neck's like, well, I'll get out of the way. And so now everything's shifting. And it's just, so now what we're doing is like we're lengthening, we're restoring the length of the neck. And now we can start to regain, the length of the neck. And so we do, and I will throw this out here. Every Monday I do Microcurrent with me, and it's a free class. I have to say it's about 70% professional, 30% consumer. It's starting to grow much more in the consumer market. But you guys, the information I give you is invaluable because sometimes it's just random shit that I will just say and be like, you know what, I saw this in the treatment room. Try this. Get back to me. And you really start to think more now from an anatomical perspective and microcurrent's ability. You're still utilizing the science of microcurrent, but we're now taking just a simple Golgi tendon theory and we've expanded it to, full facial restoration.
Jane, how can everyone join that class with you?
I put a link, I emailed you a link that maybe you can just put on your site. You
Okay.
can also email my assistant, Ashley, and it would be byjanemann@gmail.com. So byjanemann@gmail.com. That goes to Ashley, and she's literally 1,000 times more amazing than me. She gets stuff done.
So we're coming to the end of our short period of time, but I want to give everybody a little teaser about, I'm going to have you back on again to talk about something you
Yes.
talked on our summit. What was it, 2 years ago, that summit already?
Yeah.
And just give them a little taste of that. So everybody will make sure to come back for that Shelley show and tell.
So whether you're a sole practitioner or you have girls underneath you, I mean, Shelley, we've been estheticians a long time.
Yes.
You start to like classify people and personalities, and I would have somebody come in, their mother-in-law, okay, for an instance, and the mother-in-law maybe lost her husband or had a sick child. And so I put her, she was only there because she didn't want to let her daughter-in-law down. She just came to the facial. She doesn't even wash her face. She doesn't have time. She doesn't even look in the mirror anymore. And so she's a forgotten. So how do you market to a forgotten? How do you handle in the treatment room a forgotten? What things do you say? What things do you not say? What's going to overwhelm them? So I broke down these characteristics to a bold, a strategist, a perfectionist, and a forgotten. And it's really how to work with them. And just because somebody is a forgotten, I kind of go over the dynamic. She can become a bold. The bold and the forgotten are very, very similar. It's just how they have processed life's experiences and how they interpret some of the words that you say. So I worked on a psychologist with this for about 3 years, and it's been a super fun class to teach. And it's kind of who's in my bed today. And you just start to, I know, right? When I said that, my mother's like, Jane, memoirs
That's
from Las Vegas.
that's great.
But yeah, it's really insightful to your clients, but also to yourselves. And it gives you a lot of tools.
Yeah, because really not only in business, but just in your personal life too,
Mhm.
and people you meet and the people around you, just to have a little more insight with them. So I'll get that up on the calendar. We'll talk about a date and we'll get that up on the calendar. And then if you do have full classes about that, rather than just this little quickie 20-minute, I am very sure you'll have plenty of people that would be interested in that. So
Yeah, you know that I haven't refined it enough. I think it's a great hour Zoom. I'll have to figure that out or
okay,
brainstorm with
we'll
you
we'll do
on
an
that.
hour Zoom. Once we have the Shelley show and tell, we'll set up an hour Zoom for it, because I think everyone
That would
would
be
really
fun.
get a lot for selling to their clients, taking care of their clients. They get a lot out of that. But we have to say goodbye for today and let everybody get off to work.
Thank
Jane, you are
you.
as fabulous as usual. Love you lots. And everybody else, I truly appreciate you taking the time. And we'll
Thank
see you
you,
next
everyone.
Monday on Shelley Show and Tell. Bye.
Bye.